All right, let's come back to these and see how we did here. Um, First of all, we need to figure out what 220% of last year was. Now this one actually ends up being pretty easy because 220%, we might as well use a couple of 100%, and then we'll have to use a 20%. Now 100% is easy. 100% is just the total amount. So 100% in this case would be all of it, which would be 1,500. 100% here would be another 1,500. Remember when I said at the beginning, I said every 100% would be like doubling it. So that'd be like doubling this. So a couple 100% would almost actually be like tripling it. And then we do need to figure out what 20% is, which we don't have here. 20% is going to be 1/5. So if I take my 1,500 and divide it by 5, 15 divided by 5 is 3, so that's going to be 300. So our first 100% is 1,500. Our next 100% is 1,500, and then the 20% is 300. So our 220% increase altogether is going to be 15, that's 3,000, plus 300 is going to be 3,300. This right here is our 220% increase. So now we need to answer the question. If we started with 1,500 home runs, and then we increased it by this 220%, how much do we have now? We just need to add these two numbers together. So if we add the 1,500 with our 220%, 0.084, this is the average number of home runs currently. And that's just made up of what we started with, like what we had before the steroid era, and then we just added on our 220% that we found out right here. With the other question, we're reducing our budget by 70%. That's a pretty big decrease there. That's going to be more than half of our money that we're starting with. So let's figure out what 70% is. 70%, we'd probably want to use a 50% and a 20% because those total up to 70%. 50% would be a 1/2. 20% would be a 1/5. So 50%. So let's do our starting total here, which is $300,000, and we'll divide that by 2, and we're going to get, that would be $150,000. Okay, that's our 50%. Now we need our 20%, which would be $300,000 divided by 5. So if we cut that into 5 pieces, I got to think that's going to be, what, 60,000. So $60,000. So now we've got our 50% and our 20%, which if we add those together, I think we get $210,000. Okay. Now let's think about what this number means. This $200,000 is my 70% decrease. Okay, it's my reduction of 70%. So that's how much money we're losing. So now we need to figure out how much money do we have currently. Okay, if our previous budget was 300,000 and we want to know what we have left, this is going to be a subtraction problem because we're reducing our budget. We're losing money here. So if I go through and subtract this, I could just do this in my head. 210 plus 90 would be 300, so that's got to be 90 right there. Or if you did the subtraction problem, you'd have to do some borrowing, but it's still 90,000. So basically what we're saying is our budget last year was $300,000. Our budget this year is only $90,000 after the 70% decrease. So this is a explanation of increase and decrease. It's not a whole lot different from what we did before, but if you have questions, make sure that you let me know.